I find Steve Jobs the greatest visionary and pioneer of all time. He started the personal computer revolution and changed the world with his true innovation. Stephen Paul Jobs was born on February 24, 1955, in the city of San Francisco, California. He was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs. One of Steve's favorite hobbies growing up was working with electronics in his garage with his dad. They would take apart electronics like radios and then put them back together. After graduating from high school, Jobs attended Reed College in Oregon. However, he found the classes boring and soon dropped out, taking a job with video game maker Atari. After a while, Jobs began hanging out with Steve Wozniak, who also worked at Atari, and the two of them were very interested in computers. Wozniak wanted his own personal computer, and being the electronic genius he was, he invented his own computer. Jobs was impressed, because at the time all the computers being sold were mainframe ones, that were computers that basically took up a whole room. He said they should start their own company selling the computer, and Wozniak agreed. And so it all began in 1976 in a garage in California. This is the year that Steve Jobs began revolutionizing the world as we know it today. Steve Jobs and Wozniak formed their own company. They called it Apple Computers, in memory of a happy summer Jobs had spent picking apples. They raised $1,300 in startup money by selling Steve Jobs' car and Wozniak's scientific calculator. And so, they created their first prototype computer, the Apple I. It was the first single-board computer with a built-in video interface and was sold in a local retail shop for $666. They sold about 200 units of them. Jobs was just 20 years old at the time. Jobs' dream was to have a user-friendly computer, a computer everyone could use without abstract textual commands. So after a year of hard work and designing, they came up with the Apple II. It was an all-in-one computer with a simpler operating system than most computers had back in that time. The Apple II was a great success. The company quickly grew and went public just 4 years after it started in 1980. The company had a market value of $1.2 billion by the end of the very first day of trading. Jobs looked to marketing expert John Sculley of Pepsi-Cola to take over the role of CEO for Apple. The next two personal computers from Apple, the Apple III and the Apple Lisa, named after Jobs' daughter, were not very successful because they were more expensive than PCs sold by competitors. Apple's biggest competitor was International Business Machines, IBM. By 1983, it was estimated that Apple had lost half of its market share to IBM. However, in 1984, at the Super Bowl, Apple introduced a revolutionary new model, the Macintosh, with what some consider the best commercial of all time. The on-screen display of the Macintosh had small pictures called icons. To use the computer, the user pointed at an icon and clicked a button, using a new device called a mouse. This process made the Macintosh very easy to use. However, the Macintosh couldn't save the downfall of Apple. At the age of 30, Jobs was fired from the company he co-founded with Steve Wozniak. He left the company after losing a bitter battle over control with Apple's CEO John Sculley. He later said this about it. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The happiness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. Less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. Always wanting to create the next great product, Jobs started a new company called Next Computer. The first product from Next were high-end personal computers. They were technically great but too expensive for the average person, and Next began to lose money. Jobs then turned Next into a software company and began to have some minor success. However, in 1986, Jobs purchased a graphics company for $10 million. He changed the name of the company to Pixar Animation Studios. At first, the company sold 3D graphics software, but in 1991 they received a contract from Disney to create a full-length film. The first film was Toy Story, which was a huge success. Pixar went on to make films such as Finding Nemo, Monsters, Incorporation, Cars, WALL-E and The Incredibles. Jobs actually made more money with Pixar than he did during his first job at Apple. The studio merged with Walt Disney in 2006, making Steve Jobs Disney's largest shareholder. In 1997, Apple ended up purchasing Next from Jobs. He then returned to the company as the new CEO. Apple was struggling at the time after losing 700 million in shares and needed some new ideas. With Jobs at the helm, Apple began to branch out into new products. In 1998, Jobs announced the release of the iMac, which featured powerful computing at an affordable price. Less than a year after that, Apple released iTunes, an MP3 music store, and short after that, the iPod music player. Both were a huge success and gave Apple a new image of being on the cutting edge of consumer electronics. In 2007, Apple introduced the iPhone, which changed the way phones were used and took the mobile phone market by storm. Jobs became a celebrity and was considered by many to be one of the great innovators of the 21st century. In a February 1996 Time magazine article, Jobs said, "The thing that drives me and my colleagues at both Apple and Pixar is that you see something very compelling to you and you don't quite know how to get it. But you know sometimes intuitively it's within your grasp and it's worth putting in years of your life to make it come into existence." Jobs has worked hard to translate his ideas into exciting and innovative products for businesses and consumers. He was instrumental in launching the age of the personal computer. Steve Jobs is truly a computer industry visionary. Apple introduced such revolutionary products as the MacBook Air, iPod and iPhone, all of which have dictated the evolution of modern technology. Almost immediately after Apple releases a new product, competitors scramble to produce comparable technologies. Fortunately, on October 5, 2011, Apple announced that its co-founder had passed away. After battling pancreatic cancer for nearly a decade, Steve Jobs died in Palo Alto. He was 56 years old. Apple still is one of the most successful businesses of today with a 1 trillion market cap. But since the death of Steve Jobs, they inadvertently lost the true innovation and passion of what Apple used to have. I want to end this video with the Think Different campaign Steve Jobs made when he returned to Apple.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.